Church is when hundreds of ordinary people give up their security and their time off and their comfort to serve others, to put the meaning of Christmas into real action, to embody what it was for Jesus to become one of us. When you discover that the local authorities planning to close the library, which will rob local families of a fantastic resource. Church is when you realise that people's literacy needs are as important as their spiritual needs. And you work with mums and you work with dads and grandparents and children so that they can learn about reading and fun and creativity. Church is when you recognise that young people in your community are devastated by the television pictures they see of children and young people their age drowning at sea as they try to make their way across the Mediterranean from Syria to safety. Church is when you see that devastation and you want to step in, but you want them to lead and you allow them to lead. Church is when you decide to work with Islamic relief and not just the Christian relief agencies. Church is when we realise that instead of pointing the finger and casting judgment, our job is to bring transformation and hope. Church is when we realise that instead of demonising those who get caught up in guns and gangs and the seduction of terrorism, our job is to tell a better story, a story of hope, a story of forgiveness, a story of meaning, a story of purpose, instead of a story of waste and decline. Our job is to radicalise people with a story worth being radicalised into. Our job is to give people a story worth living by. Church is when you realise that when you reach out and you serve others, you become more like Christ in that process. So it turns out that church is when you work with the other. It's when you work with the LGBT community instead of against it. It's when you embrace those of different faith instead of reject them. It's when you reach out to those of different denominations and those who are secularists. It's when you reach out in love instead of retreating into your own shell. That's what church is.